They play 72 games, and at the end of 72 games, we'll find out where they are. And they came home and they took care of business. After that disaster, or not disaster, but the very disappointing loss out in Los Angeles against the Lakers, and Derrick Rose not boxing out and all that other stuff, they had to come home and they had to win 3 games, assuming that Milwaukee was going to beat Miami. And I kind of felt like we all felt like that was going to happen. So they end up with the 4 seed. It's 72 game season. You got to count all the games, and they did exactly what they needed to do. I just want to say, as a Knick fan, who wasn't a Knick fan really the last 20 years because of the disaster that they were and the decisions that Jim Dolan was making as to who he was hiring, I will say thank you to Leon Rose, thank you to Tom Thibodeau, thank you to Julius Randle and R.J. Barrett, and thank you to Derrick Rose. And then I will also say thank you to the bit pieces and parts of this team, the Alec Burks of the world, the Taj Gibsons of the world, the Nerlens Noels of the world, that just basically came out of nowhere and came together as a team. In a season that was shortened by 10 games, they busted their ass. Julius Randle basically played every game except for one. He was the unquestioned leader of the basketball team who came back in great shape and really is playing for a huge contract. And he put every ounce of effort into it. And those 3 men at the top of that leadership food chain, if you will, of the Knicks deserve a lot of credit for putting this team together and having this team play the way that they played and the way that they finished. Yeah, and yesterday the backups of the Celtics kept this thing close in the fourth quarter, but I don't think there was any doubt in my mind that they were going to win. It was just a question of how they were going to win and how they were going to keep yet another team, even though it was backups, under 100 points and play defense. So, all right, now comes the reality. The reality is this, and we all know it, and we've known it since Derrick Rose got here, that there was a major problem with the Knicks. And it's the biggest problem that they've had for a long time, and that is who is the main point guard for the team. Now, look, you're going to be going against Ja Morant, so he's going to tear apart anybody that they got.
Trae Young.
Trae Young. Yeah. Trae Young. He is going to tear apart anybody that they play. So it's going to have to be a collection of 5 guys that are all going to get minutes. Even Elfrid Payton's going to get minutes because here we are.
He has been really bad.
Look, I
hate to say it, I know he has so much positivity, but he's been really bad.
I know he has, but there's a guy by the name of Tom Thibodeau who will figure this out, who will coach this thing.
I bet you Payton doesn't get minutes.
He may get some minutes. He's gotten minutes all year long.
What I'm telling you is, in the postseason, he might be relegated to the bench.
Yeah, but here's part of the whole thing that's going on with the Knicks. It's team before self. He's got that group figuring that that's what it's going to take in order for them to win. And Elfrid Payton may end up playing. Look, I know Knick fans can't stand him. Guys, we're here at number 4. He's been a big part of the rotation, and he has not played great. And I know that it's, everybody now wants to jump on him. But at the end of all of this, if you take a look at the way Thibodeau has handled all of this, he's given all these guys important minutes. Who's probably going to get more minutes now simply because of defense? It's not just Elfrid Payton. It's going to be Frank Ntilikina, I would imagine. We're going to see a little bit more of him because they're going to have to collectively just say that Trae Young has got to be somehow mitigated in some way, shape, or form. You can only stop him so much. And everybody's going to have an opportunity to play against him because Derrick Rose can't play him. But let's be honest. Derrick Rose is an offensive presence, and he's a guy that's a spark plug. But if you're going to ask him to play more than 25 minutes, at this intensity level, because we all know and we saw it in the NHL playoffs over the weekend, the intensity level is going to go up enormously. Yeah. So Thibodeau will figure it out. And again, our team does not have the quintessential superstar. That's why we're the 4th seed. That's why we're probably somewhere between 8 and 12 in terms of best teams in the league right now. It's a collection of older players with some nice young players sprinkled in. But to me, this is a great accomplishment for Thibodeau, especially because he has taken a bunch of guys and put them on the floor together, and they did something none of us expected.
Yeah, and I'm not going to add to anything that you said about the team in the regular season because you're absolutely right. Everything that you went through with every player and Thibodeau, hats off, congratulations. It's great. They should be reveling this over the next week. But now as we turn our attention forward, my expectation is that they're going to win this series. It is, and that's not me being overly confident. That's not me touching the money. That's not me being cocky. It's me watching this team the entire year, knowing what they did against the Hawks in the regular season, knowing who the Atlanta Hawks are, the Knicks having home court advantage. My expectation is that they win this series. Now, I don't want to say that Trae Young isn't a great basketball player, But, I mean, he's a big-time shooter. He is someone that can take over a game offensively at any time, but he's also someone who defensively could not stop anything, and he's always whining for calls, and you can kind of get him out of a game if things aren't going his way. And the Knicks, to me, are a better team from top to bottom, and I know that the talent of Trae Young, and there's going to be things that he does in this series where he's hitting threes from half court, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's unbelievable, and all those things will happen. But from top to bottom, I believe that the Knicks are a more solid team, especially defensively. I think they're deeper, and I think that they are going to move on to the second round. It's not going to be easy, but I think they'll move on to the second round to play the Sixers, and I don't think there's really going to be any excuse outside of injury and why they shouldn't win this series. That's where I'm at with this team. That's how confident I am, and that's why I wanted the Hawks the entire time. I wouldn't have been saying the same thing about the Bucks or the Heat. This is why I wanted Atlanta, and this is why I wanted them at home, because they're going to go to the second round. Mm-hmm. If the same Knicks team that we saw this regular season, and there's no reason to believe otherwise, shows up in the postseason, they'll beat the Hawks.
Well, they'll be healthy, too. And, when you think about the Knicks, they have some kind of journeyman players that have been playing their butts off, who have been hitting shots. And, and you're talking about Alec Burks, and you're talking about Reggie Bullock. I mean, again, bit players that Thibodeau has figured out how to get into the rotation, and this is basically who they are. They don't have an Embiid, they don't have a Jokic, they don't have a Giannis, they don't have a Durant, they don't have anybody of that sort. What they have is a collection of guys that have busted their ass first and foremost on defense. That's the thing, and then all of a sudden their shooting has become lights out over the last half of the season. And R.J. Barrett's a big part of that. But then again, those guys, Burks and Bullock, and then, of course, the defense of Nerlens Noel and Taj Gibson. Could you imagine if they had Mitchell Robinson in the middle there as well?
I know. Mitchell Robinson, by the way, who has been rehabbing ever since he's out again with another injury, put on like 20 pounds of muscle. He posted it on his Instagram.
That guy's going to be, I'm telling you.
Think about that.
Here's the one thing. If any one of these young players watched what Julius Randle did in this season, can you imagine the impact that he's going to have on those guys?
Sure, absolutely.
And who am I talking about? I'm talking about Barrett, Quickly, and Mitchell Robinson. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Obi Toppin.
Yep.
I mean, if they all just sit there and they say, wow, look what this guy just did to himself and how he has created himself into, a budding star. But, again, he's a budding star, but he's not a top 10 star at the point. That's why the depth is such a key thing, especially when you're playing against a point guard like Trae Young. This has always been, like the last 20 years, it's been like the Knicks hamstring, if you will.
Yeah.
It's been that one guy that can make everybody great. The first time that Derek was here, it wasn't great. It was not great. But now he's here and he's playing, and he has been a big reason why this team has got to number 4. That was a great trade that they made. But obviously, by making a trade for an older Derrick Rose, what are they telling you? They're telling you that, yeah, we understand we have a problem at this position. But now, collectively, they're going to have to go against Trae Young. It's not going to be one guy's matchup nightmare. It's going to be 5 guys that are all going to have an opportunity at some point in time to take him down. And this is where, I swear to God, this is where coaching, everybody says the NBA, it's not really about the coach, it's about the players. Well, maybe in some situations it is. But for this particular situation for the Knicks, if Tom Thibodeau is not coach of the year in the NBA, I don't know who the hell is.
He will be.
I don't know who the hell is.
He has to be. He has to be. There's no question. He has to be. And I don't want to make it seem like, because I know what'll happen, like the Knicks will lose game 1 or something. People, you're overconfident with the Hawks, and you wanted the Hawks, and now you got the Hawks, and look what happened.
Who cares what people think? I mean, it's the way you think. You're just giving your honest assessment.
But I will say that of all the teams, like when we're talking about Trae Young, and we should be, because he is the engine of this Hawks team. If you look at the rest of the league and the other matchups, like Embiid, as you mentioned, these great players in the East, Embiid, Giannis, Jimmy Butler, of course, didn't play over the weekend against the Bucks, which was a huge deal as the Bucks played all those guys. I actually didn't even think that I thought the Bucks might tank that game to avoid Miami because of what happened to them last year against Miami. They did not, so I'll give them credit for that, playing all their guys. Trae Young is an exciting player. He's not a player that I look like, oh man, the Knicks are running into Trae Young. I just don't feel that way. Now, the Hawks might be thinking the same thing about the Knicks and Julius Randle.
Yeah, exactly.
They may be thinking the same thing, but I don't know. I'm taking this group 10 times out of 10 against the Hawks.
I'll tell you, since McMillan took over, the Hawks, have been a totally different team.
They have been. Yeah.
Just like, Thibodeau has made the Knicks into a totally different type of team.
They got good role players, too. Bogdanovich and Clint Capella. I mean, these guys are starters, not role players. But they've got solid players in their starting five that are pains in the neck.
They're very similar to the Knicks in the fact that, except they do have like an electrifying point guard.
The Knicks are better defensively, too.
I think so. And the Hawks are, are more of an offensive-led team because Trae Young is up and down the court like a madman.
And they brought in Nate McMillan to improve them defensively, and it has helped.
But the Knicks should be able to score, somewhere between, 105 and 120 per game.
Yeah.
Honestly. So really. So I don't know. You got what you wanted. What I wanted was just a 4 seed. I just wanted them to finish the season off strong. After coming off of that just, 3-3 road trip, which was a brutal road trip. It was hard, it's long, and they figured out how to beat the Spurs. They figured out how to beat the Hornets, and then they figured out how to beat the Celtics. That's the way you end the season, man. That is like, as a Knicks fan, and they wore the white jerseys yesterday. It was great. It was just, that's the way it should be. That finally, thank God that they finally finish the way they should finish. And and here's here's my hockey reference for you. What Thibodeau is to the Knicks is what Barry Trotz is to the Islanders. And the Islanders, they have their star, Matthew Barzal, and then they have a collection of other guys that are kind of like Alec Burks and Reggie Bullock, and they'll run you over. They'll just absolutely be a pain in the ass to play against, and they know where to be. They know their structure. They know their defense. They got a backup goalie playing because their starting goalie's not healthy. And all of a sudden, what do? They go out there and they just play toe-to-toe with the Pittsburgh Penguins and their stars, Chris Letang and, of course, Sidney Crosby. Now, no Evgeny Malkin yesterday. I don't know if he'll come back or when he's coming back. But, man, that was unbelievable. And Kyle Palmieri.
Well, yeah, that's the biggest thing.
And this is why you got him. You got him for the playoffs. And, I think what he needed more than what he needed more than anything? He needed his beard.
He did. He needed the playoff beard. Yeah.
He got the beard. So just like James Harden's got the beard, Kyle Palmieri's got the beard back and all of a sudden scores 2 goals, and away we go.
Well, I think that's the thing that excites you most about the Islanders, if you're an Islanders fan, is the fact that Palmieri, who did not play very well and was not productive after the trade, he wasn't. He was not producing like they expected him to, showed up in a huge way in that game. It's true. And now maybe he takes off from here. And by the way, that Tristan Jarry, that goaltender for the Penguins,
he was terrible.
Glove side high every time on that guy. He must have a blind spot. There must be something going on, peripheral vision. That's where you need to shoot the puck.
This thing's going 7, dude. This game is this series is going 7.
Probably.
I mean 87 sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And you know it because he's, a great player, but he is on the ice and the puck. How about the deflection he had yesterday?
Yeah, well, he just throws his stick out there. Just unbelievable. He's smothered already.
Andy Green is right there.
Yeah, I know. He's smothered by him. He just throws his stick out there. He sees the game like nobody else does. One of the greatest players we've ever seen.
I'm telling you, the NHL playoffs yesterday, 3 overtime games, and then Tampa and Florida trying to kill each other last night.
Yeah, well,
in front of about 60% fans down there in Florida. It was ridiculous.
To me, it's about the Islanders and Penguins. Outside of that, I don't have the brain capacity to follow the rest of the NHL postseason.
Are you going to follow the NBA rest of the postseason? You're going to follow the playing games? You're not going to follow the playing games?
I don't really.
What the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, it's not as exciting. You know what it is? To me, it's who the Nets end up getting in the first round will be interesting. But outside of that, and I guess you know what, the Lakers in the West, I think that's an interesting wrinkle.
Man, they dropped, and they dropped.
Right. I just want to see the Knicks rest, get healthy, just get ready.
Isn't it amazing? Like the Knicks got the 4 seed and they didn't have LeBron James, and the Lakers got the what did they get? They got
they're the 7.
The 7.
Yeah. But they there were some injuries there.
Could you imagine what the Knicks would be if Harden were on their team?
Yeah, it would be a little bit better because he's a good player.
Now Harden's got to deal with,
but also,
are we playing? Are we not playing? What's important? What is important?
The Knicks couldn't trade away what it takes to get James Harden. He wouldn't want to come to the Knicks anyway, so who cares? Let them.
Man, if he would have come to the Knicks, it would have been unbelievable. He would have been unbelievable.
But you wouldn't have had the rest of the roster. You got to remember that.
It wasn't
like he was a free agent. It was a trade.
Yeah.
Who cares? I don't want to even think about that. Doesn't matter. The Nets have Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant, and they had one of the most unbelievable highlight plays I've ever seen in my life. yesterday. Did
Off the backboard?
that whole thing with Blake Griffin behind the back to Kyrie, then over to Mike James off the backboard to Kevin Durant?
I've been watching that with the Rangers against the Devils and the Sabres all year long.
What?
I mean, the passing and the tic-tac-toes and the goals. It's the same thing.
No, it's not. That was cool yesterday.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.